On his second week on the job, Marcus Holt was pulled into a compactor and killed, and the manager who laughed about it was standing in that same break room just hours later. 8 months after Marcus died, that same manager reached into that same machine, and it took his arm in under 2 seconds. What did the company know about that machine before either man ever got near it? Marcus Holt needed this job more than most. He was 34 years old, a father of 2 boys, aged 6 and 9, and he had spent 3 months out of work before he walked through the doors of Redfield Industrial Processing on a cold Tuesday morning in February. His boots were worn at the heel. His hands were already rough. He was not a man who asked for much. He showed up on time, kept his head down, and did what he was told. On his second week at the facility, the floor supervisor assigned him to the compactor line, a heavy industrial pressing machine that crushed raw material into dense blocks for packaging. The machine weighed over 4 tons. When it cycled, the floor shook. New workers always flinched at the sound. The veterans had stopped hearing it years ago. What Marcus was never told was that 3 workers on that same line had already filed written complaints about the compactor's left side guard panel. The reports were dated November 14th, December 2nd, and December 19th. Each one described the same problem. The panel was loose. It rattled during operation. It needed to be fixed before someone got hurt. All 3 reports were logged by the floor supervisor. Not one of them was acted on. Instead, a supervisor had zip-tied the panel back into position and sent the machine back into service. On February 11th, just after 9 a.m., Marcus was feeding material into the left side of the compactor when the guard panel gave way. It swung open mid-cycle. The machine did not stop. The press came down in 1.3 seconds. By the time the emergency stop was triggered, Marcus was on the floor. He was conscious. He was screaming. Co-workers ran from every corner of the floor. Someone pressed the stop. Someone else dropped to their knees beside him. The machine sat idle above the chaos, still humming like nothing had happened. Marcus Holt died at the hospital 4 hours later from internal injuries and blood loss. He never saw his boys again. By noon, workers had been pulled off the line and gathered in the break room. A safety coordinator read from a printed statement, and that was when facility manager Dale Cresswell walked in through the side door, looked at the group of shaken workers and said, "Guess he didn't read the manual." 2 people heard it clearly. Neither one ever forgot it. Workplace safety inspectors arrived on February 13th and spent 3 full days inside the facility. They did not have to look hard. The zip tie was still holding the guard panel in place when investigators photographed it. The 3 written complaints were pulled from the internal filing system. The maintenance log showed no record of the compactor ever being taken offline for repair between November and February. The machine had kept running through every single warning. Redfield Industrial Processing was cited for 4 serious safety violations. The fine issued totaled $118,000. The company's annual revenue that year was recorded at over $40 million. Redfield paid the fine within 30 days. A new guard panel was installed. The compactor was back in operation by February 28th, 17 days after Marcus died on that floor. No criminal charges were filed. Dale Cresswell kept his position. Workers heard nothing from management beyond the printed statement read on the day of the incident. One woman who had filed the second complaint back in December said she was never contacted by investigators directly. They asked the supervisors, she told a co-worker. They didn't ask us. The anger on the floor had nowhere to go, so it stayed low and quiet. Workers talked near the lockers and in the car park after shifts. The story of what Cresswell had said in the break room spread the way those things do in a place like that. Someone wrote it on a slip of paper and taped it inside a bathroom stall. It stayed there for 2 months. Cresswell, meanwhile, pushed production targets higher. He walked the floor with a clipboard. He tapped his watch at workers who moved too slowly near the compactor line. The machine was running. That was all that mattered to him. What no one said out loud, but every person on that floor already knew, was that the compactor was still the same machine. New panel on the outside. Same press. Same frame. Same 1.3-second cycle time. And Dale Cresswell walked past it every single day. Like the ground beneath, it was clean. It was a Thursday afternoon in late October, in 8 months after Marcus died. 2 workers had called in sick, and the floor was running short. Rather than pay overtime, Cresswell decided to cover part of the line himself. He had done it before. He pulled on his work gloves, picked up his clipboard, and walked to the compactor. Material had backed up on the left feed side. Cresswell did not wait for a line worker to return from break. He reached in to clear the jam himself. The safety isolation switch, the one that must be engaged any time a worker reaches into the feed area, was not activated. He had not been trained on the compactor. He did not know the protocol. He had simply watched the job done enough times that he believed watching was the same as knowing. The machine cycled 11 seconds after his arm entered the feed tray, and the compactor generates 47 tons of force per square meter at full press. What it did to Cresswell's left hand and forearm was immediate and irreversible. He screamed. Workers came running. Someone hit the emergency stop. Someone else called emergency services, while a third worker tried to apply pressure to the wound with their bare hands, because there was no trauma kit within reach on that side of the floor. Cresswell was airlifted to hospital. He lost his arm below the elbow. Surgeons worked for 6 hours. He survived, but the blood loss had been severe, and the outcome, doctors noted, could easily have been fatal. When workers on the floor heard what had happened, the break room went completely silent. Nobody cheered. Nobody said a word about what Cresswell had said 8 months earlier. One woman sat down and stared at the table, and she had filed the November complaint. She had described the guard panel in writing. She had done everything she was supposed to do. The machine had not cared about any of that. It never had. It did not care who was standing in front of it. Dale Cresswell survived. Marcus Holt did not. The coroner listed Marcus's cause of death as traumatic internal injuries, consistent with crush trauma, compounded by significant blood loss before surgical intervention was possible. He was 34 years old. His oldest son was 9. The facility was re-inspected following Cresswell's injury and issued 2 further citations. The compactor was taken offline permanently the following month and replaced. A company statement described the October incident as an accident resulting from a failure to follow isolation procedures. Marcus Holt was not mentioned by name. What the statement didn't mention was that the same machine had been reported 3 times before it killed Marcus. It did not mention the zip tie. It did not mention that no one had been disciplined for ignoring those reports. It did not mention the $118,000 fine, a figure that amounted to less than 0.3% of the company's annual revenue. In 2010, the Deepwater Horizon disaster showed the world what happens when warning signs are treated as paperwork. In 2005, the Texas City refinery explosion killed 15 workers after years of ignored safety reports. Redfield Industrial Processing was not an explosion. It was quieter than that, but the failure was the same. Written warnings, known risks, and a choice to keep running. Marcus's family received a civil settlement. The amount was sealed, and his 2 boys still live in the same house where their father used to drink his coffee at the kitchen table on Sunday mornings before they woke up. That table is still there. Cresswell never returned to the floor. He moved to an administrative role and later left the company. There is no record of any disciplinary action taken against him for the words he said in the break room on the day Marcus died. The machine is gone now. The floor has been repainted. New workers walk across it without knowing what it cost. The last thing Marcus Holt's oldest son said to his mother the week after the funeral was a question. He was 9 years old. He asked her, did anyone know it was going to break? She didn't answer. She already knew. And so did everyone who had signed those 3 reports and watched them disappear into a filing system that no one ever opened again.